welcome to the information webinar for the Jim Pattison Children's Hospital Foundation Research Grant Opportunity. So my name is Karen Tilsley. I'm the Director of Funding Programs with Saskatchewan Health Research Foundation. And the reason that I'll be talking for most of this webinar is that SHRF has partnered with the Jim Pattison Children's Hospital Foundation to administer this funding opportunity. So also with me in the office today is Ali McElmoyle from the Children's Hospital.
Hi.
And I'll pass it to her in a couple of slides. So everything we're talking about today is available through the grant guidelines for this opportunity. So we'll go over that information, and so within that we'll be talking about the funder, the program, important dates, all about the funding opportunity, allowable expenses, how review happens, how funding decision happens, and I can answer any questions that you have. So nothing is secret. This is all a transparent process, and we want to support you in submitting your application. So don't be afraid to ask questions. So the Zoom program has a question and answer feature. So if I see a question come up that makes sense to answer right away, I'll do that. If the information's coming up, I might just leave that. And then we'll also have time at the end for question and answers. So from there, I'll pass it over to Ali to talk about the Children's Hospital.
Sure, thank you. So for anyone who's not familiar with us, we've been around since about 1992, and we started out as the Children's Health Foundation. Jim Pattison Children's Hospital Foundation is a provincial charity, and we support pediatric and maternal health services across Saskatchewan. You can see on the slide there our mission statement. So we fund equipment, patient care initiatives, education opportunities, and of course, research. And with the opening of Jim Pattison Children's Hospital at the end of September of this year, our goal is to now fund groundbreaking Saskatchewan-specific research and serve children, families, and moms-to-be across our province, regardless of postal code. Our foundation seeks to promote excellence in maternal and pediatric health care by focusing specifically on research projects that have the potential for significant provincial, national, and international impact. So it is our belief that funding research is one of the best ways to invest in child and family-centered care, and it's a great way to bring about new and innovative treatments. So our research vision is to become a world leader in maternal and pediatric care. We want to improve the lives of kids, moms-to-be, and families throughout our province and beyond.
So that brings us to the funding opportunity that we're talking about today, the Research Grant Program. So this program is supporting projects that have potential to enhance pediatric or maternal health care within the Saskatchewan Health Authority. So on the slide you'll see a listing of the different departments that are relevant to where health care is delivered, and those are also listed in the guide. And this program, this opportunity is for research that fits one of the priorities listed on the screen here. So only applications that are relevant to one of these priorities will be considered eligible for this competition. So that includes novel therapeutics, with cannabinoids being one example of a novel therapy, remote access to healthcare and artificial intelligence, Indigenous healthcare, improvements to quality of care, and improvements to maternal care. So the onus is on the applicant to describe how their proposal addresses one of these priorities. And I'll just pass it back to Ali to let you know where this information is posted on their website.
Sure. So if you head to our website at pattisonchildrens.ca, in the header there is a link called Grants that you can click on, or you can scroll down to the very bottom and there is a footer that says Grants and Applications. If you click on that, it'll take you to our main page outlining all details for all of our grants programs, and all you have to do is scroll down to the research grant section. We have the guide available for download, and the application is linked through right beside it.
Okay, thanks, Allie. So that's where you find the guide. So step 2, very important step, read the guide. So everything you need during application, if you're successful, doing the online submission, everything you need to know is contained in this guide. So it is 28 pages, which might be somewhat daunting, but I wanted to break that out for you. So really, there's about 3.5 pages at the beginning that really talks about what this opportunity is all about. So really need to start there and get a good understanding of that, which we're also talking about today. From pages 6 to 10, you'll read all about how you will submit your application and the review process it will undergo. Pages 11 to 15 are grant management policies. So if you are successful in receiving funding, what do you need to know about managing that? And that's good to read at the application phase as well, because you are hoping to receive the funding. So we have a few pages talking about definitions, mostly around team roles. Just because every funder talks about these things differently, we want to just be clear about what we mean by different team member roles. And then a large part of the package is actually a preview of what you will do online. So you can see everything you need to know about the application form, what information you need to gather, what signatures you need to get. You can read all of that in the guides. So when you log in online, you are fully prepared. So there are 2 key steps in this competition. So the first step is a mandatory eligibility check. And the cutoff for that is in about a month, November 14th at 4:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. However, you can submit that eligibility anytime. So if you want to go ahead, if you're ready with your idea, your team, then you can submit that eligibility today. It will come to me and I'll take a few days to look at that. If I have any questions, we can go back and forth, and then I can get your eligibility approved, and you can go ahead and get started on the full application anytime. So November 14th is really the last call for eligibility, but we encourage you to do it sooner rather than later. But everybody must go through this step, and it's really to your advantage to have those early discussions about your project and whether it's a good fit for this opportunity. So the full application is due January 16th at 4:30 p.m., and so that's done by submitting online. So I'll just lay out the process from beginning to end here. So the competition launched at the end of September on the 25th. Today is the information webinar. And so from here, you have about a month to get that eligibility check information submitted to SHRF and get any questions answered that you have. Between the eligibility cutoff in November and the application deadline, you're pulling together that proposal, getting CVs from your team members, working with your institution to get signatures, compliance approval, all of those things. So, you know, if you take out Christmas, you've got under 2 months there. So keep that in mind when you're planning. So after you submit your application January 16th to SHRF, then that's when we check for conflict of interest with our reviewers. We work with our chair to assign reviewers to your application, and then we give the committee about 6 weeks to look at your application. They all come together to meet, and then those results are given to the Jim Pattison board for final approval. So you can see why it takes until the end of March to get those funding decisions to you. So those will come to you in writing. And then the start date is May 1st. So between that time, you find out about your funding. You could be getting your ethics in place and anything else you need to get started so that your project can begin on time in May. So that kind of lays out the process for you. So the grant you're applying for is up to $120,000 over 2 years, and there's no requirement to have it be 60 and 60. So you can use that $120,000 over 2 years as is appropriate for your budget. This funding is non-renewable, and we have funding available. Pattison Children's Hospital has funding available for 3 teams this year. So in order to hold this grant, the principal applicant must be affiliated with an institution eligible to hold SURE funds. So I've got the logos up on the screen, and if you have any questions about that, feel free to contact me. So an important part of this is the interdisciplinary team that you're building. And because we're looking for an interdisciplinary team, the opportunity outlines some specific roles for the team members. So we want at least 3 people based in Saskatchewan, and they need to include a researcher, a healthcare provider, and a patient family advisor. And so each person can only fulfill 1 role for the purpose of eligibility. So to meet minimum eligibility, you need to have 1 researcher in Saskatchewan, 1 healthcare provider in Saskatchewan, and 1 patient family advisor in Saskatchewan. At the application submission in January, you can make changes to your team membership, but of course you still need to meet that minimum eligibility, and your team should represent the expertise needed to complete the project. So we use the words team members and applicants somewhat interchangeably, so I'll just go over how we talk about that. So the principal applicant, there's only 1 per team, and it's likely the researcher because they're the ones that have permission to hold the grant at the institution, but it could also be a healthcare provider depending on their expertise for this project. For example, someone in a medical college or faculty might be also a healthcare provider. So there's also co-principal applicants. So they're not the designated project lead, but they play a significant leadership role. So those could include any number of researchers, healthcare providers, or patient family advisors. In addition, you can have co-applicants, and again, that can be any number of researchers, healthcare providers, and family patient advisors. And so really you're composing a group of people that has the right expertise to complete your proposed research. The restriction we have in terms of multiple applications is that the leaders of the project, being the principal and co-principal applicants, are only permitted to submit 1 application in that role. Those people may be on other applications in the role of co-applicant. So when we use the term collaborators, we're actually using it with a specific meaning when we're talking about the research proposal. So collaborators are not team members or applicants, which means they don't provide a CV, they don't go online or write parts of the research proposal, anything like that. What they do is submit a letter of support that the principal applicant would include in the online application in time for the submission deadline. So that collaborator could be an individual that's providing a specific service at some point. It could be a person that's representing an organization that has interest in the research and general support, providing access to patients, that type of thing. So that's what we mean by the term collaborators. When you're developing your budget, you can use that $120,000 to do the things you need to do to complete the project you proposed that you can't get from other sources. So if you think about it like that, so you could be hiring staff, trainees, material supplies, services, travel to complete your research, as well as a knowledge translation and dissemination you can include in your budget. Equipment, including computers, is a maximum of 10% of the request from this grant. Recognizing that you might need other sources of funding or have in-kind contributions from partners, you can include those in a separate budget table, and so that gives the reviewers a sense of the feasibility of your project because you are getting in-kind contributions or perhaps have other sources of funding to supplement this grant. Anything you're doing, like paying staff or students or procuring goods and services, you will follow your host institutions, that's the principal applicant, host institutions' guidelines and rates. This grant is only for direct research costs and only for research activity in Saskatchewan. So as you pull this information together, for both eligibility and application, you will use SHRF's online research management system to submit. Everything is done online, electronically, and the RMS does provide some validation, but it is up to the principal applicant to ensure that everything required is included online and submitted by the deadline. So again, those two deadlines, hopefully you've already marked your calendar. The deadline, the system does close down at 4:30 p.m. Central Standard Time on November 14th for eligibility and January 16th for applications. And if you have any trouble with the online system, go ahead and contact SHRF, likely Tanya here you'll be speaking to. So the eligibility check is a process that's reviewed internally at SHRF, and as I mentioned, it's a rolling intake and approval. And the reason we have this is to have sort of a defined cutoff point to ensure that the applications are a good fit, get any eligibility questions answered early, any special circumstances documented, and also it really helps us create review committees that have the right expertise to evaluate the applications. So at eligibility check, you need to meet that minimum team membership. So one researcher, one healthcare provider, and one patient. Obviously, the more people you have in place, the better. It means you're further along. But you do just have to meet the minimum. You're going to briefly describe your relevance to the priority area and fit with the program. Maximum 250 words on the purpose, proposed methods, potential impact, and audience. So think of this as like the outline to your full application proposal and budget. So this really gives you a head start and a timeline to get that done by. Another thing we ask for at eligibility is some suggested reviewers. So we're looking for people who have the expertise to review your proposal, who are within Canada, but outside of Saskatchewan, and also not people you work with, so who are not in conflict of interest. These are suggestions only. SHRF follows a process to build the committees and works closely with the committee chair to find committee members, but the suggestions do really help us with this process. An institutional sign-off is not required at eligibility. At the full application, you are able to update your team members and your title as needed from eligibility stage. You'll provide a plain language summary and relevance description. You will upload the 8-page project description, which should contain all relevant information for the reviewer to understand the proposed project. You can also upload, or you should upload, references separately, and you can upload supplementary materials that are optional for the reviewer to read. So for example, if there's an important data collection tool or foundational article that you think would be helpful to the reviewer, you can put it, upload it here for their convenience, but they're certainly not required read it. The timelines, just a one-page upload outlining how the project will play out. You have 2 pages to talk about the team members and the expertise they bring and the roles they'll be playing. You will upload a CV or testimonial. I'll talk a bit more about those. As part of the application deadline, you need all your support letters, so any collaborators or any other support letters you need uploaded here. There's a budget table for this opportunity as well as the in-kind and other sources that I mentioned. If that, of course, is not mandatory. Just the budget for this $120,000 is mandatory. There's a section to talk about the impact of this research and a spot to upload the page with the research office signature. When we get the research office signature, they are saying that they actually have other approvals, so make sure you talk to them and leave enough time for them to do their process. So CVs and testimonials. So there's a few different options for team members. So if the person has a position with research responsibilities, the obvious example being a faculty member, they are required to submit a validated Canadian Common CV using the Pattison Children's Research Grant CV template. And if you need help finding that, just let us know. Other team members, such as a healthcare provider that does not hold a position with research responsibilities, do have the option of completing a modified CV if they don't have a Canadian Common CV, and that's available on SHRF's website. And then for patient family team members, they have no requirement to submit a CV, but what we do need is a testimonial addressing to the degree they are comfortable sharing, letting us know about their experiences which have led them to be interested in participating on the research team. And if the patient or family member is under 18, then we'll need the parent or legal guardian signature on that. So all of the applications will undergo peer review according to SHRF guidelines for peer review. The review criteria were developed in collaboration with Pattison Children's Hospital, and so as part of that, SHRF develops a multidisciplinary committee working with the chair of reviewers from across Canada with the appropriate expertise in pediatric and maternal health. Applicants will receive written comments from 2 lead reviewers on the committee. We may use external reviewers if needed for a particular application. And the final score that the applicants receive is a result of the entire committee's live discussion and final scoring. So an average score is calculated during the live meeting that occurs. And then those scores are simply ranked from highest to lowest, and funding is allocated top down based on that average score until funding is exhausted or the 3.5 minimum score is reached. So because every application in this opportunity meets one of the priority areas, there's no separate priority ranking or anything like that. It's just top down based on score. The review criteria are outlined on page 9 in the guide, so print that page off, keep it next to you whenever you're working on the proposal. So this is what the reviewers will use with these exact words to evaluate the proposals. So they look at the idea, and so there are more details in the guide, but just to simplify, if you think about the who, what, when, where, why, and how, that's really what they're evaluating here. So the idea is what and the why, so building on the past, why this, why now. The approach and feasibility is 30%, and that is how you're going to do it, when you're going to do it. The development and impact is why, how will this impact things in the future, for who, And the expertise, experience, and resources, 20% weighting, so that's who is doing what and where. So what different equipment might you need, what expertise on the team, the environment in general. It could include community support, for example, if you're working in a community. So yeah, have a read through those criteria, and if you have any questions, you can always ask us. The scoring that the reviewers follow is also in the guide, so it's on a 5-point scale, and as I mentioned, 3.5 is the cutoff, so that indicates that we're looking for very good, excellent, and outstanding research proposals. This is just a few quick tips when preparing your application. As I mentioned at the beginning, read the application package. It is 28 pages, but it's well worth your time. Everything you need to know is in there. When you're preparing your proposal, make sure you grab the reviewer's interest. These are interdisciplinary reviewers. The importance of your specific topic area might not be automatically evident to the reviewer. So the onus is on you to really talk about why this is important and make your case. So yeah, just wanted to highlight that. Make sure you detail the how. Don't leave question marks for the reviewers to fill in. They want to know what you're doing with the appropriate level of detail. And that really proves to them that you've thought things out and have a good plan. And that includes thinking about potential bumps in the road. So it really shows your level of preparedness and ability to complete this project if you've thought through potential bumps in the road and come up with some contingency plans there. Especially in that 8-page proposal that you're uploading, make it easy for the reviewer to read. So heading, spacing, you know, not 8 pages of italics. That drives reviewers crazy. So make it easy for them to read. Use formatting to your advantage and follow the formatting guidelines that are listed. So there's a minimum font size, margin size, all of those things listed in the guide. Check your math on your budget. You know, when you might be going back and forth, changing things at the last minute, make sure you update your budget justification and your budget tables so that everything is in alignment and is easy to follow for the reviewer. And field test your application. Have other people read it who are maybe not on the team or who are more outside of your area. And then go back to the application package, remind yourself of the purpose of this opportunity, remind yourself of the review criteria, make sure you've got all the information you need in the for the application form, and go from there. If you're new to SHRF's online research management system, there are some videos on SHRF's YouTube channel that you might find helpful, just for example, how to register, how to add contacts to your application, and more. Yeah, and so any questions you have about the program administration, so guidelines, eligibility, how the peer review process works, you can contact me, Karen at SHRF. Tanya is our go-to RMS person, so she can help you definitely with any technical problems there. The Canadian Common CV does have a centralized help desk now, which has been a really good improvement on their end. So you can contact their help desk for any assistance, passwords, anything like that. And then Ali, of course, is the person to talk to relating to anything about the funder and their priorities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So did you have anything else you wanted to add, Ali?
I think just thank you very much for listening. I'm very excited to see these applications come through, and I think this is going to be really great for Saskatchewan.
So I see it's only 12:33, so we've got plenty of time for questions. But if you're not ready for questions, then you can always call, email. Don't be afraid. We'd really prefer to deal with questions early on as opposed to last minute, because you really don't have a chance to address things then. So don't be afraid to ask us questions, and if you have any right now, you can use that question and answer feature, and I'll read it out to everybody. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions, so really appreciate everybody taking the time to join us today, and we look forward to hearing about your wonderful ideas, how to improve pediatric and maternal health care in Saskatchewan.